good morning, everybody. Welcome back into Mining Stock Daily. We are going to kick off the week with a corporate update from Barksdale Resources and their Sunnyside project down there in Arizona. They do trade on the Venture Exchange with the symbol BRO and on the OTCQX with BRKCF. And happy to welcome in once again CEO Mr. Rick Trotman. It's an early morning. He just arrived home from site, so welcome back home, Rick.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Trevor.
You were down there for a few days. There was some news out while you were there. You're adding a second drill rig to the campaign at the Sunnyside project. So, obviously things must be progressing well. You announced that you had commenced drilling late last month. So here we are about, three weeks in. Give us a sense of what you're seeing. How's the drilling going? And, really, what is the campaign update here?
Yeah. Thanks, Trevor. So like you said, we added a second rig. We put out a press release on that of drilling the South Canyon zone. So that's a separate area from where the first rig went in, obviously. That drill is flying. They started a new HQ hole from surface, and their production has just been fantastic. So that hole is advancing very quickly. Right now it's in this diatreme, this big explosive breccia. From tens of millions of years ago, and we're seeing some really interesting stuff in that. We should get through the diatreme here probably in the next. Well, this is all based on kind of projections of models and geology, right? So take it with a big dose of or big grain of salt. But we should be through that diatreme probably here in the next week or two. And then when we emerge from the diatreme, we're either going to be in some volcanics or into the carbonates directly. And so. And obviously the carbonates are the big target there. So we've got kind of two different zones that we can hit in that hole, the kind of southerly part of the Taylor system, which we're, exploring for up at the boundary zone. And then deeper to that, we have the projections of what is called the Peak Prospect on South 32's ground, which is a copper skarn, very high grade copper skarn, very large. So hopefully we can get a twofer on this hole, get two zones. But more importantly, it's going to give us a ton of information as to how the system is behaving. And hopefully it opens up a whole new corridor of mineralization for us. Back on the first hole, things are going really well. That's a wedge off of the historic hole. It's an NQ sized hole, so it's smaller in diameter. And so that one is... It's slower because it's at much greater depths already, but it's advancing well. We should be at or past the carbonate contact now. So I haven't seen the daily, but anyway, we should be at that point where we start to see all the carbonates, and the carbonates are obviously the host rock that we're interested in. So hopefully this is the start of, a very good, fun period in Barksdale's history, putting the first hole into carbonate replacement mineralization.
All right. Let's continue on that first hole here. I guess maybe I missed the memo here or just, flew past me. I didn't realize that you were doing directional drilling on this first hole. And so this first one is the Wedge Hole.
Yeah, so the target zone that we're looking at is 12, 13, 1400 meters down. And so what we were able to do is re-enter an old hole where casing was in place down to 750 meters and in good shape. So we just re-entered that hole, did a wedge off of that hole, and we basically started that hole at a little less than 800 meters depth. So instead of having 1,200 meters to target, we had less than 500 meters to target. And so now we're there. So it's a great shortcut in terms of time, but it adds a little bit of complexity in that you got to make sure that, there's always an unknown as to the condition of the old hole, and you're drilling with NQ instead of HQ, smaller diameter. And so, getting the hole to perform as you want is always a bit trickier. So, but things are going well. There's been little tricky things here and there, but that's what people encounter in drilling on a day-to-day basis. So nothing abnormal.
So you're about 1,200 meters down with that target of about 1,600 meters. Give us a sense here, Rick. All goes well. How do you begin reporting these holes from, or hole one? Obviously, how do you begin reporting that? And is it something, will you continue to wedge out and fan out a little bit on this, and then how do you continue to report from those wedges?
Yeah, so we've had a lot of internal debate, Trevor, on that. Do we provide visual estimates when we go through a zone? Because we're going to have massive sulfide presumably sitting on the table.
Yeah.
Or do we wait and we, just tell people when we have assays ready? That's one piece of the puzzle. And then secondly, as you're talking about, how do you report wedge holes? Because, the interesting thing is that you can start, if you have the mother hole and you do a wedge off of it, you can start doing wedges from within the wedge, so to speak, right? And it can look like a bloody tree diagram. I think we're just going to do the holes in chronological order. I think we were using the sun designation, so sun one, sun two. Internally, we'll have a different designation as to which hole is a wedge from which other hole. But from a public facing standpoint, it'll just be sun one, two, three, kind of chronologically.
Okay. What are your thoughts on visuals, reporting visuals before the actual assays? We've seen a lot of that the last few years here, Rick.
Yeah, I know, it's one that I'm kind of conflicted on, right?
Well, because I know you, and I know that you're a little bit more of a traditionalist when it comes to this thing, because obviously visuals do not represent actual grade, right? So you got
And we would never, and even if we did visuals, Trevor, we will never estimate grade. That's
yeah,
that's not something that we will do, not a place that we will go. At best, if we do visuals, what we will say is, we've completed this wedge hole, or we're in the middle of drilling something, and from this interval to this interval, we're seeing massive sulfide, massive sulfides, right?
yeah.
And kind of give a description without kind of going out on a limb and estimating what grades could be, because I don't think anyone really appreciates that, because now you're relying on the quality of the logger's ability to estimate the composition of the rock, and well, heck, that's why we send it to the lab, because if we were just going off of their off of
Right.
their abilities, that would not be a great thing. So
Yeah, yeah.
anyway.
Just out of curiosity, because I know there's a lot of people listening in who are, really going to go through this with a fine tooth comb. What, now that you are drilling, can you give us a sense of what your cost per meter is now that you're kind of going into hole two?
Yeah, so we have this graduated kind of drilling contract. So um, I'm not going to say what the rates are, just because that's a pure drilling cost, like what we pay the driller to actually advance the hole.
Hmm.
It really ends up coming down to a number of different things all tacked together. How many bits do you go through? How much time do they spend kind of reconditioning the hole? Because those are hourly charges. How much kind of materials are you using in that hole? And then most importantly, what's your downtime and things of that nature. But all in all, we're going to be, less than $300 a meter
Mm. Okay, very
is
good.
my suggestion. Now, once we get deeper and things are going slower, um, and we're doing wedges, and a wedge takes a couple of days to set and get ready, and you start adding in those costs, we might be slightly over, but um, I don't think it's going to be an expensive program such as like a helicopter program where you're looking at five, six, seven, $800 a meter. But it's definitely not going to be as cheap as say a shallow drilling program, with kind of out in the Canadian Shield, which you might be able to get $100 a meter.
Sure, sure. All right. Rick, let's leave it at that, as I can't tell. I mean, you and I know we're both family men. I can't tell if it's your kids stomping on the floor above or my kids stomping on the floor above, but we are recording early, so that's what that's life, guys. That's life. That's how we roll. All right. Rick, thanks so much for your time. Have a great rest of your week. Thanks so much.
Okay. Thanks, Trevor.
All right, that's your update from Barksdale Resources, everybody. Again, trading on the Venture Exchange with BRO.